Vice Chairman of this committee, Senator Stephen Brewer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Senator Stephen Brewer of the Lithingen, Hampshire Franklin District. I have given you letters of testimony, and I will not belabor the point. There are 4 bills that I have put my name on to introduce to this committee for deliberations. The first is an act relative to certain tanks used in the storage of fluids, Senate Bill 914, giving some markers to the fire marshal to work on issues in that regard. The second bill is Senate Bill 915, an act relative to changing the hoisting law, which I filed on behalf of the Associated Industries in Massachusetts, and bringing some more common sense, quite honestly, to those buildings and those businesses that you wouldn't necessarily need a PhD in hoisting refresher courses in order to do the work of the public. The third bill I put my name on, an act relative to the oversight of inspections. As we all know, the beauty of filing legislation is we throw the hockey puck onto the ice and let the public hearing process take place. Since filing this bill, you will have be the difference here of a light beer commercial, less filling versus taste great. Commissioner Gitsounis will articulate his point of view, and I think there's a couple of people that will articulate their point of view in regard to this bill. So I am withdrawing or withholding any passionate support or opposition until all the public hearing process takes place.
I'm going to ask, I have my colleagues here, but I'm going to ask if I can take the commissioner first. We got a bunch of reps still here, and one or two have a panel with them. So if I could ask the commissioner, you're going to get back to your schedule.
Get back to Ashburn.
Thank you. That's right.
Good afternoon, Senator Chairman. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and speak to you today. We have several bills. I'll be very brief. I have provided written testimony on all of them, so I'll just kind of cover the highlights for you quickly here. Act relative to amusement devices, number 44. Our very right to inspect amusement devices is being challenged as we speak today. There has been a lawsuit filed against the agency. That's really not what this bill is about. It's really about making the changes in the legislation, in the law that we have put in place over the last 5 years since I've been commissioner. As you know, when I first came to the agency, we were stuck with 2 horrible tragedies, and then subsequently another one came out not too much longer from that. We've made many, many changes in our amusement regulation system, in our inspection systems. We went from about 35th, 38th, somewhere in that range, to now being rated number 1 in the country. Something I'm very, very proud of. But we need a few fixes to the law to make everything A-okay and square up in the way that we need to. So again, I won't go through the details of it, but ask for your support on that. Architectural Access Board, I'd like to hold that till the end. I have the board's chairman here with me. He will be very brief in his comments, so I'd like him to speak on that issue. Recreational tramways, that very simply changes where we are today from thinking about skiing, or the tramway regulations are limited today to skiers. Somebody literally on 2 skis. It never contemplated snowboarding, tubing. All this legislation would do is change to allow the regulations to apply to snowboarders and tubers, which use the facilities in the same way and provide them the exact same safeguards. Pretty much a no-brainer, quite honestly. Operation of unsafe elevators. This increases our ability to fine people for operating an elevator after it has been placarded, or removing the placard and then operating an elevator. Believe it or not, there are people out there today that will disregard our placards and disregard our shutting down of an elevator and start it back up again. And the current fine for doing that is $500. It was put in place, I don't know, probably 100 years ago when $500 was a lot of money. $500 is not that much today. Public warehouses, again, this is a statute that's been around forever. What we're looking to do with this one is upgrade it to allow the statute, to allow the agency to to write regulations. Also, a major change in that statute would be to go away from the current licensing of warehouses as a one-time license. So somebody who got their license 100 years ago, that license still applies today with no further updating requirements. This legislation would change that to require them to re-up on an annual basis and give us that information on an as-needed basis, on a regular annual basis. Again, with Homeland Security issues being what they are today, public warehouses are one place where we need to get the information and know who's owning what and how it's operating. Steam boilers, as the representative said, the agency does support that bill with a minor, I'll call it an editorial tweak, rather than that process being given to the Commissioner of Public Safety to make those changes and weigh on what should be in and what should not be in. We'd ask that the Board of Boiler Rules be named so that they could write regulations that would be in place that would set the standards. Board of Boiler Rules is the group of industry experts in the Commonwealth, and we look to their guidance and expertise to help us create those regulations, rather than it just be a straight waiver, which, with all due respect, could be at the whim of any commissioner at any point in the future. The hoisting law, Senator Brewer's bill, we absolutely, again, support. This will allow two things. One is to allow those companies that have smaller devices or smaller cranes to not, and what I mean by cranes is the overhead cranes within the facility or forklifts within a closed facility where the public is not allowed in. There would be an in-service training program that would be required so that the employees within that facility would be trained, would be operating under the guidance and review of a licensed individual from the agency, but it would just negate that requirement of every one of those individuals having to be licensed on a regular basis, on an annual basis. This exemption is in the law for utility companies. This kind of expands into that. The other piece, and the kind of the major piece that it does, is it also recognizes what is going on today on a regular basis, and that is the rental of small hoisting equipment. We know that this is being done on a regular basis. Currently, anybody who rents hoisting equipment needs to be individually licensed by the agency. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that it's being done. We know that it's not being done. We know it's happening every day. Again, this would allow that in-service type of training program where an individual who's renting a specific piece of equipment would have to be trained by the renter and go through a training program, be provided some actual hands-on training within their facility before they'd be allowed to take the equipment off-site and rent it and use it on their own property.
Like the little bobcats that would
That's correct. It's smaller pieces of equipment. There is a size limitation on them in both height and weight that they can carry. Again, we know what's happening. We need to make things real. The last item that I'd like to speak about is the oversight of inspections for the agency that, again, Senator Brewer filed. It's a change in the way that we operate the agency. Currently, what's in the statute allows for, or sets out anticipated one chief of inspections. The reality today of what we have within the Commonwealth, where things have gone over the years, is it's virtually impossible to have one person who's an expert in all three areas. The three specific areas I'm speaking about are building regulations and their standards and their inspections, boilers, pressure vessels, their standards and inspections, and then elevators and their standards. What this bill would allow us to do is to create those positions within the agency, much as I have today. This is not an issue where it's going to take anyone's job, it's not going to add any position, it really is the status quo of what we have today, and just adjust that. The bill that's before you needs some tweaks and modifications. I have provided the changes and will work with your committee representatives to give you those changes in a more substantive manner as we move forward.